Breaking news out of Las Vegas, and Raider Nation, this one is shaking the entire organization. A season that was supposed to mark a new era of leadership has instead turned into one of the most dysfunctional chapters the Raiders have faced in years. And what's happening behind the scenes is even more shocking than what we've seen on the field. But before we dive into the latest urgent developments, the leaks, the locker room tension, and the accountability crisis surrounding the Raiders coaching staff, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss breaking Raiders updates. Alright, let's move on to the new news. The Las Vegas Raiders entered 2025 with expectations of discipline, direction, and a veteran head coach who was supposed to steady the ship. Instead, what unfolded was a season marked by confusion, questionable decisions, and internal frustration that has now spilled into the public eye. Reports are circling that the man leading this franchise isn't just struggling, he's deflecting, he's blaming, and he's allegedly leaking internal issues to the media. And Raider Nation, it's getting messy. From pointing fingers at young players like Brock Bowers to throwing former assistants under the bus, this situation is escalating faster than anyone expected, and honestly, that should have been enough to explain the situation. No excuses needed. But the deeper you look, the stranger this whole thing gets. When Tom Pelissero described what was happening inside the Raiders' offense, it almost sounded unreal. According to his report, Chip Kelly wasn't just making minor mistakes, he was allegedly calling plays that weren't even part of the playbook. Imagine preparing all week for a specific offensive plan, and then suddenly your coordinator sends in something that was never installed, never practiced, and never meant to be used. That's not confusion, that's chaos. Picture this, a team built around a modern NFL system suddenly hearing a play call that belongs to a completely different offense. Players are lining up thinking, we've never run this. What are we doing? That's the kind of disorganization that can derail entire drives, entire games, and eventually entire seasons. And it didn't stop there. Pelissero also said there were repeated moments where receivers were supposed to go in motion, but the tag was never communicated. Guys lined up on the wrong side, the timing was off, and the quarterback, Geno Smith, is standing at the line wondering why the formation looks nothing like what they rehearsed. That's the kind of breakdown that turns a normal play into a disaster. But here's the part Raider Nation needs to pay attention to. This kind of information doesn't magically appear in the media. This sounds like something coming directly from the head coach, someone trying to make it absolutely clear, this is why Chip Kelly was fired. And the timing tells a story. The moment Kelly was let go, these leaks started pouring out, first from one insider, then from another. Not wild speculation, not rumors, but detailed accusations that only someone inside the building would know. Then, just one day after Kelly was dismissed, another report dropped, this time from Diana Rossini, adding even more fuel to the fire. And by then, it was obvious, the narrative around Kelly's firing wasn't forming naturally. It was being shaped, pushed, and delivered to the media with purpose. The Raiders weren't just moving on from a coach. Someone wanted the entire league to know why, and they wanted it loud. Now, the moment you strip away all the outside noise, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Right after Tom Pelissero's breakdown of the offensive issues, another report surfaced, this time from Diana Rossini at The Athletic. And what she published on the same exact day only added to the confusion swirling around the Raiders' leadership. According to her sources, Tom Brady was one of the strongest supporters of bringing Chip Kelly to Las Vegas. Brady believed Kelly's offensive mind could elevate the team, and he reportedly made that clear to people close to him. But now, with the offense struggling and the season slipping away, Brady is said to be quietly frustrated with how everything turned out. And here's where things get interesting. Rossini's piece reads almost like an indirect message, a message suggesting that Pete Carroll never wanted Chip Kelly in the first place. Combine that with Pelissero's earlier report painting Kelly as unprepared, disorganized, and calling plays outside the system, and suddenly the narrative begins to tilt heavily in one direction: Pete Carroll, zero blame. Chip Kelly, all the blame. Raiders' failures, explained away by leaks. And the timing? Absolutely perfect for someone trying to control the story. Two separate insiders, two separate reports, both on November 26, both pointing fingers at Kelly, both giving Carroll a clean pass. When information lines up that neatly, it usually isn't coincidence, it's coordination. And Raider Nation can see it. Because this isn't just about one coach or one firing. This is about a head coach trying to steer clear of criticism while the season falls apart. This is about a locker room trying to find stability while someone behind the scenes keeps shifting the blame. And just to show you how far this pattern goes, think back to what happened the moment Brock Bowers went down with the early season PCL injury. The very same day he missed his next game, Adam Schefter dropped a report. And once again, the undercurrent felt familiar: subtle hints, strategic framing, and a narrative that suspiciously lined up with Carroll's perspective. Piece by piece, all these leaks point back to the same source. And the Raiders' season hasn't just been hurt by mistakes on the field, it's being shaped by the politics of it. When Brock Bowers went down early in the year, he battled through it for a few games, until the pain finally caught up. The moment the Raiders ruled him out, Adam Schefter immediately dropped a detailed report about Bowers' injury. And that alone raised eyebrows. Schefter wrote that Bowers had been playing through a PCL issue and a bone bruise, that the injury from week 1 was affecting his performance, and that doctors believed rest was the only way to heal. Then came the part that didn't quite sit right: Bowers, according to the report, was unwilling to rest. Now let's be real, Schefter isn't at Raiders headquarters. He isn't attending practices. He's not talking to the training staff face to face. So where would he suddenly get such specific, internal information? Someone from inside the organization clearly wanted that message out there. And the wording? It paints the picture that Bowers made the final decision, not the coaching staff. That he insisted on playing hurt, even if it meant playing far below his normal level. But that idea falls apart the moment you think it through. Because teams do game plan around Brock Bowers. Even at 70%, he forces defenses to adjust their coverages, tweak their assignments, and waste precious practice time preparing for his presence. His mere alignment changes the way opponents call their plays. So ask yourself, was Bowers really the one refusing to sit? Or did the staff keep putting him out there because it helped them tactically, even if it didn't help him physically? That sounds a lot more believable. And it sounds exactly like a decision made from the top of the coaching structure. If the Raiders had simply shut him down for a few weeks, let him heal properly, he could have returned by mid-season. But instead, the narrative that leaked made it appear as if he ignored medical advice. And once again, that story conveniently shields the head coach from criticism. And it didn't stop there. Another leak surfaced, this time from a different insider. According to this report, the staff initially wanted to start rookie guard Caleb Rogers. But in practice, he struggled so badly with basic assignments that the coaches felt starting him would be disrespectful to veteran players. They also labeled Charles Grant as too raw to play. Think about that. Who inside the building would openly say something like that about their own rookies? Who would publicly diminish players the team drafted, unless someone wanted to make absolutely sure the blame never circled back to the coaching decisions? These aren't casual details. These are targeted leaks. And every single one of them points in the same direction. Now here's where the whole situation takes an even stranger turn. When that initial report about Caleb Rogers surfaced, the one claiming he struggled so badly in practice that starting him would be disrespectful to veterans, it was clear something wasn't adding up. The coaching staff mentioned in that leak. That's essentially Pete Carroll and his inner circle. No one else. But what makes this even more bizarre is what happened next. Rogers eventually did get on the field, and played like one of the most reliable offensive linemen on the entire roster. So if he truly couldn't grasp basic assignments, how did he suddenly become one of the few bright spots on the line? That isn't a player problem. That's a coaching problem. And the leak conveniently avoided mentioning that. Instead, it pointed the finger downward, not upward. And you can bet the players saw it. Caleb Rogers is on social media. Brock Bowers is on social media. Everyone in that building knows exactly who keeps whispering to reporters. Because this pattern isn't subtle anymore, it's obvious. Every leak blames someone else. Every leak protects one person. Every leak builds the same narrative. Before Chip Kelly was fired, these stories were already trickling out, and then they exploded once he was gone. Pete Carroll's preferred insiders painted Kelly as unprepared, disorganized, and incompatible with the offense. But Chip Kelly wasn't about to stay silent. He fired right back. Through Ian Rapoport, Kelly made it clear he wouldn't sit quietly while someone twisted the story. And the response was explosive. According to those familiar with how the Raiders actually operated, the offense Las Vegas was running wasn't Kelly's at all, it was Pete Carroll's old Seahawks system, repackaged and forced into a roster that didn't fit it. And that revelation hit like a hammer. 2 coordinators fired. Special teams coach gone. Offense collapsing. Confusion everywhere. Yet the common denominator, the man making the decisions, kept deflecting the blame. So what does all this point to? A head coach brought in to win now, who hasn't delivered. A locker room that can see through the excuses. And a season where internal leaks have caused almost as much damage as the losses on the field. At this point, Pete Carroll isn't just coaching on the sideline. He's coaching for his job, and when you step back and look at everything that's spilling out right now, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Through Ian Rapoport's latest report, it's clear someone is pushing a very specific narrative, and that narrative points the finger straight back at Pete Carroll. Rapoport didn't just drop vague hints. He's saying this is the second coordinator Carroll has let go, and the way he frames it feels like an attempt to quietly redirect blame. Then he goes even further, suggesting what the Raiders are running isn't even Chip Kelly's system, that people inside the league don't recognize it as Kelly's offense. And then comes the wildest part, the claim that this offense looks exactly like the 2023 Seahawks attack under Shane Waldron. That's incredibly specific, way too specific to feel accidental. Because realistically, nobody can look at a handful of concepts and say, oh yeah, that's 2023 Waldron. Offenses overlap, coaches study each other, and the schemes share DNA. Zach Robinson, Shane Waldron, they all pull from similar structures. There's no unique fingerprint that only one person uses. So when a report comes out naming that exact system, someone wanted that message out there. Someone wanted that comparison made. And Chip Kelly's camp is clearly pushing back, sending a message of their own. If you try to put this on me, I'm pointing right back at you. Rapoport even added that Kelly likely regrets taking the job, and honestly, you can understand why. The man walked into a situation where the foundation was already unstable. Because here's the truth, and it's obvious when you actually watch the tape, the biggest problem isn't Geno Smith. It isn't Chip Kelly. It's the offensive line, and the stubborn refusal to adjust it. Game after game, snap after snap, the protection collapses before anything can even develop. Sure, Geno isn't flawless. Sure, Kelly had his moments. But those issues pale in comparison to what's happening up front. And then there's the tension between Pete Carroll and John Spytek. We don't know the full details, but the friction is real, multiple reports have confirmed that. Maybe Spytek wanted a long-term build while Carroll pushed to win immediately. Maybe the visions clashed from day one. Whatever the case, that disconnect has bled into everything happening now. So this is where the Raiders stand. They either commit to another year of trying to win under Pete Carroll, or they step back, acknowledge the dysfunction, and reset the entire direction of the franchise. And honestly, with everything that's come out, with the leaks, with the blame shifting, with the internal tug-of-war, it's hard to imagine Pete Carroll surviving this. It feels like we're heading toward a breaking point that can't be walked back. What happens next for the Raiders is going to define the next few years of this franchise.